Welcome to this episode of the Sneaker Principal Podcast. Dear Sneaker Principal, everyone in my district is suddenly talking about AI, chatbots for parent communications, grading assistants, and even AI principal dashboards. But here's the problem. Most of us don't even have working systems. We don't know how to use the tools that we already have. We're still drowning in paperwork, dysfunction, and reactive leadership. I'm excited about AI, but nervous. How do we lead this moment without making things worse or wasting time on stuff that won't actually fix the root problems? Signed, wary but watching. These days, I'm actually more reluctant to respond to AI questions only because it's now officially the flavor. Every company that touts to be a tech company or provides software are scrambling to find how they can integrate AI in there, not as a way of solving a problem, but as a way of enhancing a product. Which is not a bad thing. If AI can enhance your product and make it even more effective, that's amazing, as long as you can prove the end results. But AI now has become the thing you do because if you're not doing it, then you're not in vogue or you're somehow broken. It's like the era when people were like, if you're not on social media, something's wrong with you. And it's funny, but still this day we have people out there who are like, I have no social media. I have no TikTok, I have no X, I have no YouTube, I have no Facebook, and we look at them and we're like, ooh, wow, you are an outlier, you know? So, but in the personal realm, that's not a big deal. But I can see where in the business space, it is a big deal because you want to make sure that you're not being left behind as far as the products you're producing. So why am I talking about businesses? Because a lot of times AI in our schools are coming from the inside. They're coming from the outside. They're not something that's actually being built within the schools. Very few schools have journeyed down the path of saying, how do we implement AI within our school versus, hey, we're going to purchase this program that's AI powered to do whatever it is, whether it's grade books, whether it's an assessment tool. But what I'm hearing here from this question, this letter from Wary but Watching is, how do we lead in this moment without making things worse or wasting time on stuff that don't actually fix the problem, the root problem? And that's what is happening. And I'm seeing it as a principal. I receive, wow, I would say in a month, dozens of emails in a month from vendors, some that I know, some I'm familiar with, who are now telling me how AI is enhancing their product. And some of it is cool, but some of it is also like, okay, this is not really solving a problem. If anything, in some cases, it's making things worse. So here's my response. I'm going to respond to this in 5 points. Number one, remember that AI enhances leadership. It doesn't replace it. I'm going to say this again. AI enhances leadership. It enhances teaching. It enhances communication. It enhances things. It does not replace it. If your school doesn't have clarity as far as its mission, its vision, its culture, what it's trying to get to, that's not a tech problem. AI is not a tech problem. But remember, AI is technology. What you have there is not a tech problem. AI will only amplify what's already happening, good or bad. So really think about that. You know, outside of AI, what is happening in your school? What is happening in your district? What's happening within your community? Because then you start to ask yourself, okay, now, what are potential solutions to these root causes and to this analysis we've done? Number two, I just mentioned this concept of pain points. Okay, you got to start with the pain points. Once you determine what the issue is, you know, first of all, know what the pain points are. What are the things that we know, like, we keep facing these things. If it's our attendance, okay, man, I'm going to give something simple with attendance. We notice that Mondays and Fridays kill us. You know, kids are taking longer weekends, and they're starting the weekends earlier. So we might have solid attendance Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But Mondays is always a struggle to get the kids into the building, and Fridays, they just vanish. That's a pain point. But if you're trying to maintain your attendance and you have Mondays and Fridays as your low attendance days the whole entire year, you could have 100% attendance Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. But if you're sitting at 80%, 70% on Mondays and Fridays, it compounds. And what you end up having is poor attendance, regardless of the conditions of it. So now you figure out what the pain point is, your attendance on these 2 days. Now you go deeper into saying, okay, what is causing this? What are the root causes, right? Then from there, you start to figure out solutions. So when we talk about AI, we're not saying, how do I use AI to solve my attendance problem? No, absolutely not. But however, you can ask, what's causing the low attendance? Clarity on what the issues are. What are the things that we need to do? Then now you can say, okay, with AI, let's use AI to something like Perplexity. Let's use Perplexity to look at existing research out there, or strategies, or whatever the case is, or say, hey, AI, here are the numbers, here are data, this is what's going on here. Creating a prompt and saying, what are potential solutions or strategies we can implement in these schools, and what are the benefits and disadvantages of each? You see? So speeding the processing of the information to come up with potential solutions that you still have to figure out, you still have to test out, you still have to analyze, you know? So again, you see how AI is not giving you the answer. It's a tool that helps you potentially get to an answer, but in a much faster way, you know? And then you can go ahead and build out what are potential implementation strategies. Okay. Think about this. All these things all require that you first do the work, figuring out your pain points, forget about the shiny tools. A lot of times we're over here saying, oh my God, they're using this particular tool over here, and if we could only get that same platform, that same program, that same AI enhanced, it will solve our problems. No, it will not. Because if you have no understanding of what the problem is, then guess what? You're just putting, what's the old saying, putting lipstick on the pig? Like, come on. Number 3, clean your systems before you scale them. Clean your systems before you scale them. If your classroom management systems is broken, AI won't fix it. If your observation cycles are completely just defunct and it's taking you forever to get into classrooms, and you're compounding all observations within the last 2 weeks of the cycle, or teachers are getting their responses, 15, 20, 45 days after the observation, that's a system that needs to be fixed. Because it doesn't matter what tool you're using for your observations. It doesn't matter what tools that you're using for classroom management. What you still have to have the foundational systems in place that are clean They don't have to be perfect, but they're working, because then you can focus on improving those systems and using AI or whatever platform or technology to enhance your systems, or even assess your systems. But however, remember this, if you automate chaos, you're just creating faster chaos. When we say it again, if you're automating chaos, you're just creating faster chaos. So it's very important that your manual systems are built out first before you implement, an AI strategy in there to optimize it. Because again, we do not want to optimize chaos, right? Number 4, and this is something that's very important, because this is the conversation we're having right now nationwide, this fear of AI taking over what human beings do. And same thing in our schools. Because again, no one is talking about that yet. Let me backtrack. No one's talking about the potentiality of AI and what it could actually mean to teaching instruction, because people are saying AI can never replace human beings in the school building. A conversation for another time, but I see how that can happen. Have you noticed how comfortable our kids are with communicating with AI versus communicating with their own teachers? And it's something that they communicate with their own parents, kids that are using AI as a tool, as a therapy tool, having conversations, and it's a very gray area, very murky, but the fact of the matter, there is a use case being developed unknowingly that can lead to a space where AI in some capacity starts to take on the roles of teachers. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know, but I'm just aware of the fact that the potential of that happening is being experimented with, and we know that. But in the case of this conversation, in the case of this letter, use AI to elevate human work. One more time, use AI to elevate human work, not erase it. And I might be speaking about this in a way that's maybe a little ahead of its time, but that's the key. As long as we're using AI to make the work that we're doing better, more efficient, with higher and better outcomes, then it limits or prevents the erasure of the human work in what we do. See, the goal isn't to replace educators; it's to free them to focus on relationships, creativity, and coaching. I tell my teachers, if we use this technology the right way, we become facilitators. We become conductors of learning orchestras. But at the core of it, we still have to do the manual work of setting things up. Using AI, of course, having AI be that assistant in the process, of course, but the goal of it is to elevate the work that we're creating in our schools for our students. I say this, I've said this in many presentations. Let AI handle the repetition. The things that we know always have to happen. Let AI be the tool that you use to fine tune and those repeatable functions. However, it's important, listen, come here, principals, teachers, system leaders, we handle the vision. We handle the vision. We do the work of saying, okay, what is it that we need to do here? What do we see that needs to to come into play. That's our responsibility. Now we use AI to bring, not necessarily to bring, but to aid in bringing the vision to life, if that makes sense. And lastly, document, reflect, and share. Document, document, document. So often now in this world of technology, we're moving so fast. You know, we're implementing, we're collecting data, and we're re-implementing, we're collecting data, we're assessing, but we're not documenting. We're not in a very intelligent way saying, what happened here? What made this work? What are the things that we noticed? Students' reactions, parental input. How did the teachers feel about this? All those little pieces of data, those qualitative data points, we don't always do a good job at making sure that we're tracking that information. You know, the story. You know, every AI experiment in your building is part of the overall leadership portfolio, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's what the students are doing, whether it's you know, the principal, assistant principals, the leadership team. There is a portfolio that should be maintained of all the steps that we're taking, the strategies that we're implemented, because this is the way that you know to improve the process. You know, you have to capture it. You know what worked, what failed. What would you share with another leader about the process that you went through, so they can minimize having to go through the steps that you went through, so they can get to the actual work and finished product for their kids much faster. Remember, you know, we're not just using AI, we're prototyping the future. Everything we're doing right now is literally future work. And whatever we do in the future is future work as well. Because if we use AI in the way it should be intended to be used, the outcomes are going to be incredible. What comes out of it is going to be something that compounds over time, and we can close gaps much faster. We can get to a place where the things that we've been worrying about for the past 20, 30, 40 years is no longer the focus. Now we can focus on the future. What does the world with AI look like? And what part do we play in it, and what part do our children play in it, and what part would they be part of? What part would they play in creating that future? So I'm going to say this. Wary and waiting. I think that was wary and waiting. Yeah, wary but waiting. Thank you again for DMing this to me, direct messaging this to me on LinkedIn. I'm going to say this to you and everybody else listening. Don't get caught up chasing headlines. Don't be caught up, oh my God, this tool here and that tool here. Oh my God, I heard that this one and that one. Before we start, figure out exactly what the need is. I mean, like I tell people, you should be using AI every day, building those muscles, understanding how it works, you know, but you cannot use it from the jump to solve your problems. But remember, chaos will only create more chaos. You're just going to have AI multiply your chaos for you. No, you need to know what exactly the pain points are, you know, so that you know how to use the tool, whichever tool that you choose to use. The real revolution still happens between people. So getting your team together, sitting down and saying, hey, what are we doing here? What do we need? What do we need to fix here? What problems do we see here? That is important. You know, listen, it starts around that conference table with your team. It starts in the classrooms with observations and talking to teachers, talking to parents, talking to kids. You know, that's where it starts. It doesn't start with AI. AI comes in at some point in time to now fine-tune the process that has already been established. All right, y'all. Uche and Joku, thank you so much for your time, and I'll talk to you again soon. Be well.